And welcome to One More Thing podcast. I'm Dr. Troy Doucet, and I'm joined with Dr. Larry Baucom, man.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, week 2, real series, loving this study in James, man. You're taking a whole new, different perspective, very unique interpretation and hermeneutic of this. And one of the things I wanted to start out with, because it came up in a conversation in the Grand Hall, it's like you're framing this study, this real series, by saying something like this, and I could be wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong, that faithfulness is greater than merely having faith.
Absolutely.
So how would can you sort of give us some insight into what you mean by that? Because I think that's profound.
Well, I think if you go back to Habakkuk, which is the prophet in the Old Testament, very small book, and he basically looked out on the horizon, the bad guys are in like thousands and thousands of enemy coming against you, and he starts challenging God. He said, how is it that the bad guys are going to win? We're the good guys. We're the guys that live, according to our faithfulness in life. We've been consistent in honoring the commandments and all these things. And he kind of challenged him, hey, wait, you'll see the sign. Look for the sign. Finally, the sign was, the righteous will live by faithfulness. Now, Paul picks that up in the New Testament, and he misquotes it, or at least it's interpreted in Greek a little different than Hebrew,
right,
where it says, the just shall live by faith. It seems like the church has created a structure of faith and beliefs and all this intellectual knowledge. I've got the 10 Commandments because I have them, they're mine. But the theme of the Bible, not just in Deuteronomy 6, where it says, put these commands on your hearts, write them on your doorposts. And we try to externalize things like that. Yeah. And we say, here's what I believe, here's my faith. And even at some point in the New Testament, the same thing comes up. But back to Jeremiah, Jeremiah says, I long for a day where it's not written on tablets of stone, but written on the fleshy tablets of the heart. Jesus reinforces that internal idea, and James picks it up, says, you guys are still trying to externalize these laws. You tell me what you believe and all the doctrine, and I'll tell you that you should live your life with faithfulness. The evidence of a heart receptive to God is shown in faithful living, loving one another, those things. But somewhere we've gotten this mistaken thing that, if you got to, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ and thou shalt be saved, and you believe, but your life reflects your heart connected with God, and that is faithful. Every day I live a faithful life to trust God regardless of the circumstances. I think that's the essence of what James is trying to say.
I think it's a beautiful way to put that. I have not to bring it up, but because it hits so close to home, I spent 6 years writing a dissertation that was essentially what you were saying. And of course, there's more things we got to pull into to writing a dissertation. But the way I sort of simplify it is there's a huge disconnect in the church between being right, like having the right doctrine and the right creed or the right belief. So the difference between being right, which creates a moralization of certain things, a literalization of tying phylacteries around my hand.
Right.
And right being, right? So instead of being right, where I challenge everything and everything is some sort of discourse in who's right, as opposed to right being, where I'm living in a way that reflects the faithfulness I have, to the teaching or what have you. So again, and it's hitting really close to home to me, because I think there is a disconnect between what I believe and what I'm becoming, right? Mm-hmm. And I say it all the time. I can believe helping people is a good and noble thing. Just don't ask me to do it, and that's become a lot of the Christian essence is, as long as I have the right beliefs, I'm good. Just don't require me to live them out,
Right. And there's some churches and some seminaries or Bible colleges or schools that they teach students apologetics. Mm-hmm. And apologetics is simply, you defend your faith, you defend what's right, because we're going to teach you how to push science away, or anybody disagrees with you, you can defend this. I have never, and by never, I mean ever, been a fan of apologetics. And I have refused to become part of the debate team about what different people believe. And I've had people say, well, back in the day, what's once saved, always saved, or, eternal security or eternal insecurity or, free will, all these different components. But at the end of the day, I love to go back, and the founder of Methodism, John Wesley, he confronted a friend of his who disagreed with him on a lot of things. He said, but if your heart has been warmed, as my heart has been warmed, then take me by the hand. We're brothers. And somewhere, that's got to slip in there to where people don't always believe the same things. And the reality is, you nor I, not that we disagree with each other, I'm sure we do at some point, but I disagree with myself. Certain stages of where I was, I go, I don't believe that anymore. So am I going to beat myself up? We do the best we can with what we know, and we got to give quite a bit of grace and flexibility and belief, but accentuate. But I'm going to love people. I'm going to smile and let people see my heart, and I'm going to be kind. And I think those are universal things. I don't think there's a doctrine of kindness.
Yeah.
But I think we need to be kind to one another, and the church could take a real lesson in that area. At least my history within the church could take a lesson from that, and we could do better.
That's really good. I mean, it's this topic, even in staff, someone had brought up, like, someone was like, oh my, it's a sin sermon today. And sin has always been sort of situated in the church's mind as like that ticket to hell, if you will. And I remember I went to a conference once, and you've probably seen something similar to this. And we walk in, and this clock starts ticking upwards, like the numbers start increasing rapidly.
Almost like the gas prices.
Yeah, exactly. And the preacher gets up, and it's 5 minutes later or whatever, and we're watching this clock just count upwards. And he goes, I bet you have questions about this clock. This is the number of people in the last 5 minutes who've gone to hell without knowing, who've died in their sin. And it was like really like a very frightening thing for me to go, not because I believed that, but because he believed that.
Right.
But yet you frame sin in this idea of not as this sort of moral weakness that we have, but really this idea, you use the Ovid, poem of Narcissus, right? That there are certain tendencies we have that are innate within us, that are natural, to take care of ourselves, to love ourselves. I can't care for others unless I'm caring for myself.
Right.
In other words, I can't give away what I don't have. And you sort of qualified sin as like part of it is being a little too self-empowering, right? A little having too much sort of, what's the word I'm thinking of? Self-gratification, like a little too self-centeredness.
Right.
Like we've crossed the mean into something that's...
This is a problem with humanity. 5th century BC, Iliad was written by Homer. And one of the things about Iliad, Achilles was there, and the whole point of the story was his pride, his hubris.
Right.
And hubris is this over attention to me. And I think that's what happened to Narcissus, where he really was so focused on himself that what is the essence of sin, I think, is not that it's this sacrificial idea where I've got to bring some sacrifice to God to atone for the sins of my humanity. I think sin has been interpreted in so many different ways. I would love to get rid of the word myself, because I think it has so much connotation that by the time you get rid of all the baggage that it contains, you're worn out.
That's right.
So if we, but for me, self-centeredness, self-accentuation, to where it's like you were saying, you're beyond the golden mean. The pendulum has swung way too far.
Right.
And when I'm less than my best, then I've really sinned against me. And by that I mean I have damaged me, or I've not really achieved my greater passion or good in life. And what is sin to me is not that it's when I'm there's a good word for that, but when I am a jerk, as a synonym for the word I'm thinking of, and I'm just not at my best, and I treat people badly, I go, that's not who I want to be. And that's when I go, I could do better. And I think what James is saying in this whole thing, temptations are to abandon your relationships, keep abandoning your relationships, try for financial gain at the cost of others, anything that accentuates this hedonistic idea of happiness is the greatest pleasure of life. It's all about me, about me, about me. And I think that if there is a term sin, a definition I would use, I think it misses the mark.
Yeah. And what's interesting about the text of James is we often think of sin as doing the wrong things, like giving in to certain temptations, like the lure of the fishing analogy that you use, which was an awesome visual for people to see. Like, this thing is going to take you to places that you don't want to go.
Right.
And how do we not get the hint of, hey, we've been here before? And that's where you brought up the last point, which was, again, a deeply profound point of, but very simple. If you just, and I agree with Einstein, simplicity is profundity.
Agreed.
If you think about it, you said we should rest, right? Like, that's the first element, is to stop, take stock, and then reflect, right? And then remember, like, go back to those moments where this very same thing, maybe it manifested in a different way, but this very same situation you find yourself in is going to take you back to that situation you said you wanted to avoid again at all costs. Like, can you give some additional insights as to how you came about that in your own experience as a pastor?
Sure. This week, I've been working on a lot of financial arrangements for some things I'm doing, to the point to where it's been time-consuming. It's been all-consuming, to where for a couple of days I put in over 10 hours a day on things that have nothing to do with the church, but has to do with financial loans and things. And I've been working on this for a long time, but it's now coming to this point to where I was so overwhelmed. I just, my mind is thinking only of that. And then I go into this sermon and I go, it's amazing that when I get in this sermon, all that falls away. Because I began preaching it to myself, and as I preached it to myself, I thought, what are the things I need? And I need to rest, take 10 minutes and block everything out, but open my mind, not to what I need to do, but open my mind to all the blessings and all the good things that have brought me to where I am today. And that was so profound to me that it crept its way into the teaching this weekend. Yeah. And I have another one of those. I won't share it today, but I'll maybe share it next week, about how that a strategy and a different plan. And it's simple. It's like the breathe in, breathe out smile.
Yeah.
It helps my heart, and I want to be kind. So being kind, and when you stress yourself out, and did I sin against myself last week? I did. Mm-hmm. Why? Because I have too much time, too much focus. Did I need to do it? Yes. At the end of the day, did I look back and say, that was one of my greater weeks? No. I was so caught up in something, I didn't know how to get out of it, but I found these taking a break in the middle of it several times allowed me to pull my focus back and pushed me back into the teaching for the weekend. And the teaching may not have helped anyone else this week, but I can tell you it helped me.
Good.
Because I was living right in the middle of it. And not that I'm sinning against people or doing anything, that it's just an overemphasis in one area of your life to where you neglect those around you. I've done better, and I will do better, but last week was probably not one of my better weeks.
Yeah, man. Hey, even our pastors here are human, and that's what we love about this place, man. So, well, thanks for being with us, man. And we're looking forward to this Sunday. What are we gonna have this Sunday? Real what?
Oh, I'm not teasing anybody today. You have to come and find out.
You got to come and find out.
Right.
There we go. Awesome.
Right.